Welcome into Huddle Up. I'm Leonidas Delyannis. Thank you everyone so much for tuning in. This is episode 7. It's been a ton of fun so far. Make sure to tune into all the other episodes on my TikTok at LH Delyannis, my Instagram at Leonidas Delyannis _sports, and then obviously for my Spotify and all my other ways you can get the podcast, and my YouTube at Leonidas Delyannis. But today I want to talk about kind of the last week of preseason we just had. So preseason official week 1, and then also this preseason week 2, which actually starts tonight at 7 p.m. with the first game. And I'm going to jump right into it. The first thing I want to talk about is the Browns, because that was kind of the talk of preseason and the talk of the season so far, especially with how Shedeur Sanders played the other night. And he's really who I want to be talking about. You saw all the hate going in. He fell to the 5th round, and there was all this talk about they're sabotaging him. They're playing him to sabotage him, which I really never got behind that narrative. Yes, I'm not a big Shedeur Sanders fan, but I never got behind that narrative because of the fact of this is a coaching staff who is kind of on the hot seat. Oh, not kind of. They are on the hot seat. And why would they put somebody in the game when they're on the hot seat to have them fail? It would be in their best interest as dudes who are about to get fired for him to succeed. And I feel like that's what a lot of fans didn't understand. Like, oh, he had no reps with the first team, blah, 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 blah. Well, he only played in the game because Dillon Gabriel was injured, and so was Kenny Pickett, and they're not throwing him Flacco. He's already going to be the starter, and that man's like 50 years old. He doesn't need fucking preseason. Like, if he needed preseason reps with the team, we'd have a bigger problem than what it already was in Cleveland, and he did not need those reps. And so I want to talk about how Shedeur Sanders actually did, and I will say I bet against him that game. I bet against the Browns because I was under the assumption of hasn't really had too many reps. I don't think he's that good, and there's an airplane flying over. Sorry for that, but he actually looked good. I think it was 14 for 19, a $130, $145, and 2 touchdowns, and especially if you watch, what was it, that first touchdown? That was a perfect ball placement with the 2 defenders coming across, layered it over. And I'll say this about Shedeur. Everybody knew he had the accuracy. The accuracy was never a question about him. I personally was under the belief that Shedeur Sanders is a second to third round pick, and in a weak quarterback draft like this, he could sneak into the first round. It got to the point during that draft where I'm watching with some friends up at Syracuse, and I'm laughing. Like, there's no way this man's falling to the 5th round. And, like, when they picked Tyler Shugg, who I'll get into later, the Saints picked up above him, I was like, oh, wow. Like, everyone says he's the most pro-ready, but, like, that doesn't make sense. The man's, like, 30 years old, and you're going under a fat rebuild. Like, why would you go there? And then when the Browns picked Gabriel, I was like, this is hilarious, because I thought they were going to go quarterback. I did not think Dillon Gabriel would be the guy in the, 3rd round. But, so that's the thing with Shedeur Sanders. Everyone knew the accuracy was there. The accuracy was never a question. The question was the actual zip on the ball, because if we're being honest, he has very, very good accuracy. He has elite level accuracy. He has NFL accuracy, and there's no other way to put it. The actual zip that comes off that ball, it's not the fastest. Like, he doesn't have that crazy arm talent that some of these other guys do. Also, the athleticism is, if you're being honest, like truthfully honest, it is mid-athleticism at best, which was shown in college. I will say, though, in this game, he did surprise me with his athleticism. He had a few runs where I was like, oh, I didn't actually know you could do that. And I also believe one of the reasons he fell, which I'm not going to get into all the other stuff with it, was the fact of, Dan Orlovsky was talking about how the accuracy and all that stuff's the biggest factor, but also with how the game's moving, and we've seen those guys like a Patrick Mahomes, a Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, Jaden Daniels, and all these other guys who do have, Patrick Mahomes may not have elite level athleticism and be able to run, but that dude can still run. Same with Josh Allen. It may not be elite, but they can still run. And Lamar Jackson, elite. Jalen Hurts, elite. Jaden Daniels, elite. And especially with how the game's going, that's now the prototypical. it's not the pocket passer. The prototypical quarterback is that dual threat quarterback. And that's something that I feel like people were forgetting. And especially with how the draft process was going. And my biggest takeaway is I don't even want to know what that man had to be saying in those draft interviews. To make him fall as far as he did, those draft interviews genuinely had to be that bad. They had to be that bad, especially with after he played in that first game. And we saw, all right, he's good. He's good. He had a good game. There is still places to be concerned about, though. And you saw it in, I think it was a 4th and 2 or a 4th and 3 or something like that, where they went for it. And he had a big problem in college of holding on to the ball too long and taking those unneeded sacks. And that was shown. Instead of just getting the ball away, or at least trying to make a play, he scrambled around and lost like 20 yards on a sack versus just throwing it up, trying to make a play out of it. And that's something that I am kind of worried about, especially with this Browns O-line being as bad as it is. And you don't really know what you have in those receivers. Although they did just sign the guy out of Texas who had all the legal issues, who, first of all, I picked up in my fantasy sleeper dynasty draft. I picked him up yesterday while I was at work. Saw that notification. I immediately was like, that guy's going on my taxi. Like, there's no other way to put it. Like, I'm picking up that man. But so I was very happy with him. But at the same time, I don't know how much of he should move up the depth chart immediately for it. And I've been seeing a push on social media, especially and on ESPN and some of these shows, like, should Shedeur Sanders start for the Browns after this one game? No. I don't think that was enough to make you automatically say he should start. Now, if you're having a conversation for that quarterback 2, that quarterback 3 conversation, I think it very much helps him. Very much helps him. But at the same time, you saw it. He's not playing in this week's game versus the Eagles because of I think it was arm soreness or something with his arm. He's missed a few days of practice now because of arm problems. And this is also somebody who everyone talks about, he's getting the least amount of reps. He's getting the least amount of reps. And yet he's missing time in practice because his arm is hurt. Like, you can't have that. Especially with somebody who, at one point, it looked like he was kind of fighting for a roster spot. Now, I would be an idiot if I was to say he was still fighting for that roster spot. That's locked up. He's definitely on the team. And if we're being honest, he could end up getting traded, which wouldn't be too bad for him. But at the same time, I don't think that one game automatically means he's over Kenny Pickett or he's over Dylan Gabriel. And I'm really excited to see in this game, who do they go with? Do they go with Pickett? Do they go with Gabriel? They're not going with Flacco. Unless I haven't read it correctly. From everything I've seen, I'd be surprised if Flacco was a starter in this game versus the Eagles for week 2. I want to see Gabriel now, if I'm being honest with you. We saw what Shedeur can do, and you have all that media push. Let's see what Gabriel can do now. Because apparently from the coaching staff, there was a reason Gabriel was quarterback 3 on that depth chart. And throughout the whole OTAs, whole minicamp, whole training camp, has been getting more reps every day, has been getting more time with the first team, and has been projected to be that quarterback 3 with Shedeur at quarterback 4. Now, we as fans and even people in the media, you can only see so much of those practices, and you can only record so much of those practices, so you don't really know what the reason was. But this is where I think Gabriel's time to shine is, because Shedeur's out. He's out of the game with an arm injury. So now, let's see what you can do. Let's see why we have you like that. And I think that'll be the biggest push, because especially if Dylan Gabriel comes in the game and looks good, they'll be like, all right, okay. We can see that. But if he comes in the game and looks bad, the Browns are going to have even more hell on their hands, because now everyone's questioning even more the motives behind having Shedeur at 4. And Kevin Stefanski and that coaching staff and that whole building will have no reason, if Gabriel comes in and looks bad, to have Shedeur at quarterback 4. And I'm not a Shedeur guy. I've never been a Shedeur guy. I hate the conversation of all the stuff you love Johnny Manziel for, you hate, and Baker Mayfield for, you hate on Shedeur Sanders for. I don't like that conversation, because for the sole reason of Johnny Manziel and Baker Mayfield were 4 times a player that Shedeur Sanders was. I love cockiness in an athlete. I low-key want you to be a douchebag and be a cocky SOB. I love it. Like, I want you to be a confident, cocky SOB. But when you do that, you better back it up. And you better not go 13-12 and look embarrassing in that bowl, in the Big 12. No, not the Big 12 championship. It might have been the game against BYU. He looked bad. Like, he looked very bad. Like, and that was the last game we saw from him. Like, you can't have it both ways. If you're going to do that stuff, you got to back it up. And that's what those guys at the highest level were able to do, which is why they were allowed to be who they were on the field and with that personality. He wasn't that level of a player. And I hate this because people try to act like Shedeur Sanders coming out of high school was this blue chip 5-star prospect. The man was committed to FAU. No hate on FAU. No hate. He was committed to FAU as, I think, a 3-star prospect. And then he went to Jackson State because of Deion, and then followed Deion to Colorado. And he had a good career. Him and Travis Hunter completely revitalized that program, obviously with Deion. Nothing would have happened without Deion, but they completely revitalized that program. And I'm not going to sit here and act like he didn't do a good job. He did. But he never should have been in conversation for that first overall pick. I'm sorry. Like, that never should have been a conversation. And the fanboys and people who want to bend over and take Shedeur Sanders are just blatantly idiots. Like, Mel Kiper, good for him. He had the best day ever when Shedeur played, because all that sucking off of Shedeur Sanders looked like, all right, maybe this is true. But I don't think Shedeur Sanders is that caliber. And I do still believe Joe Flacco should be that starter. Now, but I think the main conversation comes down to if it's Shedeur Sanders or Gabriel. And I think Shedeur's a better player than Gabriel. I think Gabriel throws a better ball and is more athletic. But I do also think Shedeur Sanders translate more because of Gabriel's size. That man is maybe 5'10". Maybe. And that's being, like, honestly very nice to him. Maybe 5'11" with heels on, like, if we're being honest. You put a pair of 2-inch heels on that man, he's maybe 5'11". And that just doesn't, you don't see that translate very much. You see it with Kyler Murray, he can't see over the middle. Tua always has the problems. Baker had the problems some, but Baker's Baker. Baker's just a really good quarterback. That doesn't translate as much. And Gabriel's not the quarterback that any of those guys were in college. He's an undersized guy who was never at that level. And so I'm really hoping he can. I don't want to say I'm really hoping he can look good. I want the best man to win it out, but I am interested to see how Gabriel looks in that offense, because I think that would be the most interesting thing to see. If it was all just pure BS or if we have an actual quarterback challenge. But that's enough for the Browns. I do want to talk about TreVeyon Henderson with the Patriots, because he played my Commanders the other day. It was, Saturday? And he looks good. From week 1 of preseason, it's preseason, so you take it with a grain of salt. He looked like the best running back. Yes, Chinty and Amarion Hampton didn't play that many snaps. They didn't look good. The offensive line wasn't that great. But TreVeyon Henderson, dude, that man looked legit. Yes, the Commanders had, I think it was 1 starter on defense, but at the end of the day, he still took the opening kickoff for a touchdown. Like, that man's speed and athleticism and vision in the hole, being able to make the cut and actually see where the gaps are going, and his patience, he looked legit. He looked legit. And so he was somebody who I was very high on, because, I mean, you see him at Ohio State, and you're like, this man has all the talent in the world. It was difficult because he also had Quinshon Judkins, he was on the Browns, and Lord knows what's going to happen with him and his legal issues, which everyone knows about. But TreVeyon Henderson's good, dude. Like, that man is good. And he had a very good game, so I'm really interested to see how that translates over into week 2. How many more snaps is he going to get? But then you have him and Stephon Diggs in practice. That man's looking. Stephon Diggs has been looking like Stephon Diggs again. And as somebody who's a big fan of Stephon, I've always been a big fan of Stephon. That's really nice to see, especially after that ACL injury. but you saw the plays from training camp. If you haven't, the late throwing your hands out late, you want to, when you're catching a ball as a receiver, especially those deep routes, you want to show your hands as late as possible, because then that gives the DB the least amount of time to react to where the ball is. And there was one route that came out from training camp in the joint practice. I'm blanking on who. It might have been the Vikings. I think it was the Vikings, because he was playing his old team, where he had some of the latest hands I've ever seen. The ball was literally right here, and his hands were down, looking, and then right when the ball was there, he sticks his hands out. Like, it was absurd. Like, he's looking like Stephon Diggs again. But that's enough for the past now. And Jalen Milroe in the Seahawks. Now I'm going to move over to the NFC. Jalen Milroe in the Seahawks. I love Milroe. But in that game with Milroe, we were able to see Bama Milroe again. And not in a good way. Not in a good way. The athleticism is still there. Nobody ever doubted that. But the main critique with Jalen Milroe is, unless it's an 80-yard deep ball, it seems like that man is incompetent of throwing it. Like, it doesn't look right. It doesn't look right, and it doesn't end up right. There's just no touch. There's no accuracy with it. And I was really hoping, I know I talked about it in my last podcast, I was really hoping he would look good, because I like Milroe. I thought he was one of the most intriguing prospects. But it's looking like it's not going to be a quarterback route for him. And I know it's only week 1, so, I mean, we've seen quarterbacks look amazing in week 1 of preseason. We've seen this stuff happen, and then they look horrendous. Like, Kenny Pickett in his first game looked amazing. Kenny Pickett's not that good. Kenny Pickett's not good, if we're being blatantly honest. But it sucks, because Milroe, it looks like he's going to go a Taysom Hill route, and there's no other way to put it. Like, they might just have to use him as that, because from week 1, he's not a quarterback in the NFL. He's blatantly not a quarterback in the NFL, and it sucks. I'm sorry, you're not. Moving over to the NFC North, in Caleb Williams in the Bears. The Bears are playing all those starters this week. And that's something I'm really excited for, because, I mean, you bring in Ben Johnson, you bring in all these pieces like Luther Burton, you still have DJ Moore, Cole Kmet, and then you bring in Colson Loveland out of Michigan, the tight end, who I'm very high on. I do think he's the second best tight end, and that's the reason I drafted Tyler Warren in my fantasy draft. I think Warren's a better player, so I don't really get them picking Loveland. But Loveland's still a very good player. I'm not going to sit here and say he's not. But Ben Johnson has brought a new life to that offense. And that's what you expected bringing in somebody like him. You expected him to bring in an offense and a game plan like you saw in Detroit, where it's fast, no bullshit. Like, if you do it wrong, I'm yelling at your ass. Like, we're playing my type of ball, which is what the Bears needed, because they are such a dysfunctional franchise, and there's no other way to put it. Like, that team did not look good last year. Caleb, yes, he only threw 6 interceptions, and I think 23 touchdowns. He didn't look good, though. And I'm sorry, like, he did not look like the Caleb Williams that we were all expecting, and there's no other way to put it. And so I'm really hoping that he's getting the start this week, and they're actually playing all of, if not majority of their starters this week against the Bills. So I'm really hoping that will turn out and look good for him, because I know it's with quarterback, it's like you have a 3-year, and that year 3 is really where it matters. Will they decide, are we going to pick up that 4th year? Or are we moving on from you? And I don't want to sound over-exaggerating it, but I feel like this is really the make-or-break year for Caleb. When you bring in somebody like Ben Johnson and you have all those pieces come in, this is the year. Yes, they could push it to a year 3, but when you look at this quarterback draft coming up, Garrett Nussmeier, Lenore Sellers, Carson Beck, nobody knows what the hell is going to happen with him. I don't think he's that great. Yes, Georgia did have the most drops by any team in the SEC, so it wasn't all of his fault, but I still don't think he's that good. Then you still got Arch Manning. Now, with Arch, I will say I'd be surprised if he comes out. If his grandfather Archie has anything to do with it, that man's staying 4 years at Texas, because he's doing the Manning way, playing as much college ball as possible. You've also seen it. The best quarterbacks who've come out of the draft in recent years have played the most amount of college ball. And Arch has also said he's playing another year. Archie has said Arch is playing another year. Now, that's not Arch saying it, so you don't know how much the take with that. But, I mean, you saw with Peyton, you saw with Eli, you saw with Archie. They play as many, even Cooper, before he got injured. Like, they want to play as much college ball as possible to get you and be in the best position possible. And when you have a quarterback draft like that, if Caleb Williams does not come out and look like the Caleb Williams that we expected to, it could be bad for him. And there's really no other way to put it. And I'm not going to say that they're going to move off from him. I will never say they're going to move off of him, because that man was drafted first overall for a reason. You saw his college tape. I mean, I love Jaden Daniels to death, but I know coming out of the whole thing, I was like, God, if we could get Caleb, like, that would be my dream. Yes, it's because he's a DC guy and all that stuff, but Caleb, that college tape didn't lie for itself. Like, that man was legit in college. And so I was really hoping that we would be able to see more of those flashes. But it seemed like we saw more of the problems with Caleb in college, where he wants to hold on to the ball too long to make that play versus just throwing the ball out of bounds. Just throw it out, live another day. And you would see that, well, he would just take an unneeded sack. But it's also hard. How much of that are you blaming on him or the dysfunctional coaching staff that they had? And so that's why I feel like bringing Ben Johnson in might be a make or break year for him. And honestly, for a lot of these Bears starters, because Ben Johnson's proven that he can run a good offense. He was in control of that offense in Detroit. Yes, that Detroit offense was amazing. Goff was a perfect quarterback for it. You had guys like Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery in the backfield. Then you had Amon-Ra. You had Sam Laporta, Penei Sewell on the offensive line. Like, half the offensive line was Pro Bowlers the past few years. Like, that offense was insane. But this Bears offense also has a lot of pieces. And if he cannot show what he can do, then I don't really know what we're expecting from him coming off even more. Now, moving on to the NFC East and my Commanders, which is the one I've been waiting to talk about. My main takeaway is Jacory Krosky-Merritt, a.k.a. Bill. I'm going to be honest, I don't know where the Bill nickname comes from. His name is Jacory Krosky-Merritt. I got to look that up. Why is he called Bill? That man's good. I picked him up in the 21st round of my fantasy draft as a taxi player because, I mean, I saw him at training camp. I've seen all the film. He's been running with the starters a ton. He's good. And I mean, I was seeing tweets yesterday that NFL reporters were saying that if Adrian Peterson and the Damian Tomlinson had a baby, and then it was, I forget, two other really good running backs had a baby, and those two babies had a baby, that'd be Bill. And it sounds like crazy to say, but from the film, that man looks good. Like, his contact balance is good. I think he had, 65 yards in the preseason game, something like that. But he moved up from running back 5 to running back 4 on the depth chart in this last week. And I've also been saying stuff, and I've been very prevalent on this that ever since I saw him at training camp and I've seen all the film and watched all the practices, that I do believe he will take that starting running back job from Brian Robinson by week 3. That's my guess. Now, I don't know everything, and I'm not going to sit here and act like my word is God's word and that's what's going to happen. But I do believe sooner rather than later, that man is going to be our starting running back. He is that damn good. And you saw it in that game. Jacory Krosky-Merritt is a second-round running back who, because of eligibility issues, dropped to the 7th round because teams were scared. And I know it's crazy to say, and I didn't really know what to believe going in early in the draft process, and after we drafted him early in minicamp and all that, when there was this much hype over a 7th-round running back. And you're like, 7th-round pick, like, he's not actually going to be that good, for Christ's sake. Like, no. But I didn't know what to really see. And I mean, talk about Brian Robinson, Cliff Kingsbury just said on a JP Finley quote that on Brian Robinson, Cliff Kingsbury said that he's a guy that when you put on the pads and you really practice full speed is where he really shows up. I thought he had his best practice against New England when we did the complete versus game plan before the game. And I do believe that when the pads come on, and you've seen him flashes with Brian Robinson, that when the pads come on and you need him to be that yardage back, well, he should never fall backwards. When he's falling down, that man should fall forwards every single time. He is too damn strong. But it seemed like, except for flashes last year, and I mean his rookie year, but he also got shot going into his rookie year, so it's but that you could see that some. But it was also hard because I felt like a lot of the time that what you drafted him for, which was to run downfield, he couldn't do. And he's not that fast. And it would just seem like that tucking the ball and falling forward was never his biggest strength. And that's why I think Jaworski, Corey Merritt might be able to take that starting spot, because that man's fast. He has a vision. And that contact balance that man has, if you watch the film, oh my God. He will get hit and just bounce right off and keep going. Like, it is absurd. And we haven't had hype like this for the Commanders for this later round pick since Alfred Morris in 2012. And I know that's crazy to say. But also, nobody thought Alfred Morris would be what Alfred Morris was that rookie year and that second year. And people forget, he had, 12 touchdowns or something? Like, in that RG3 season, a lot of the games, especially that Dallas game, was won by Alfred Morris. It wasn't won by RG3. I know the stats want to say that. I was at that game. If you watch the game, I was at damn near every game that season. If you watch the games, it was through through Alfred Morris. And like, he was the reason we were winning games. RG3 was good. RG3 was damn good. But Alfred Morris was the guy. And when it needed to happen, they were giving the rock to Alfred. And like, I remember seeing the baseball swing with the salute. Like, I was like, this is hype. But I'm really hoping he gets good. And I'm also looking at this Commanders game versus the Bengals on Monday, which is 8 p.m. kickoff on ESPN. So I'm definitely watching that. Hoping to God I don't have to work that night. That I want to see how many of these starters we do play. That's really what I'm looking forward to. How many starters do we play? Because in that New England game, if there's 22 starters on the offense and defense, we probably played 6 at max. Connolly was in the first-round draft pick out of Oregon. He was at right tackle. Oh, he was at left tackle, if I'm not mistaken, because Tunsil didn't play. I want to see how many of these guys are actually playing, because I want to see what this team and the starters actually look like. Because, the Bengals played all their starters for the first half last week against the Eagles. So you saw what the starters, like Joe Burrow is Joe Burrow, Jamal Chase is Jamal Chase. And I really want to see what these wide receivers are going to look like, because nobody really flashed, except for undrafted free agent Ja'Cory Brooks, if I'm not mistaken is his name. I'm blanking. Pardon me, I'm completely blanking on his name now. He had 5 receptions for 65 yards. He had a good game. He looked like the best receiver that we had right then. But we still have Terry out. And I will say, though, going in the past few days, there's been a lot of reports that this Terry deal is going to be about $28 million a year. And they're not looking at his past production in the contract. It's looking at, what are you going to give us for the future? And I've seen people say, well, if I was going into a job contract and they said my past production doesn't matter, I'd be pissed off. Yeah, well, I'm sorry, your office job is not the same as a fucking NFL job. It's completely different. Like, it is a completely different field where what can you do for me now and what will you do for me for the future is how you get paid. I'm not looking at, what you've done in the past as much. And I'm sorry, that man's almost 30. I think 28, 29 is exactly where I would put it. At maximum, I'd do 30, 31. I wouldn't do the 33, 34 like he actually wants. But I think his agent's fumbling the ball massively. But back to what I was saying, there has been a lot of reports that this deal's coming down now. And people would also very much not be surprised if we hear about this deal before that game Monday, which, Lord have mercy, that's exactly what I want, because we need him back in this offense. And unless we sign somebody like Amari Cooper, Odell for depth, Odell's not going to be that good, but Odell for depth. Unless we sign somebody right now, all wide receiver one is Noah Brown. Deebo Samuel is not a wide receiver one. He's going to be more of that slot guy, so he'd be that too. Right now, the starting receivers would be Noah Brown one. Pardon me, wow. Deebo Samuel in the slot, Luke McCaffrey, and then what do we have? Chris Moore in there. Some of these other guys, like that's not what you want. You need Terry McLaurin. And if you're not going to do something with him, you need to sign his ass because that man needs to report because we need him on the team. If we want to try to make a Super Bowl run like we're projected to make and make a deep run and fight for that NFC East title against the Eagles, you need Terry freaking McLaurin if you're not going to sign anybody or trade him for somebody. And it seems like they don't want to do that. They want him just to come and play. And if they're not going to do this, they better get his ass to play. Like, there's no other way to put it. They need him on the field. So I'm really hoping they actually get that contract done and can get that done. But at this point, you don't know what's going to happen with him. And it sucks to say. I'm hoping to God that we just get that shit done. And I can see him, he's been at practice the past few days because he's still doing his hold in. I think it was 2 days ago we saw that conversation with AP. And it's looking good, but they just need to do something with him. They need to sign that man. And it's getting to the point where it's somebody has to cave. And if I'm being honest with you, I hope it's Terry caving because his agent's a freaking idiot. And if his agent has his way, Terry would be getting 45 a year. But his agent's an idiot. And if you look at who the agent has under contract for other dudes, the next best player is like Jeremy Chen, who we let go in this offseason, who might be the starting strong safety for Vegas or free safety, whichever one he plays. But we need to sign that man, and it's not even close. That's kind of all I got for this episode of Huddle Up, episode 7. Thank you so much for everyone who's tuned in. Make sure to look at all my other episodes, pretty much anywhere you get your podcast. You can go through my Instagram to get it all, at Leonidas Delyannis _sports, my TikTok at LH Delyannis, my YouTube, Leonidas Delyannis. Thank you so much.